Welcome to the KobraCast tutorial. This test sheet of KobraCast, made by the Warbler Company, was sponsored by CosplaySupplies.com. KobraCast is a thermoplastic. Thermoplastics are plastics that, when heat is applied to them, become malleable. For this tutorial, I will be creating a pair of Pokemon Gajinka ears. Right now I am using a can of hairspray to create the size of the ears because I don't want them to be too large, and behind me I have a reference image of the Pokemon to figure out what shape I need to create. Thermoplastics are very easy to draw onto using pens, markers, Sharpies, chalks, and pretty much any kind of drawing utensil. I prefer Sharpies as they are much brighter and easier to see. Once I have my pattern completely drawn out, I take a pair of sharp scissors and I cut out one of the ears. Here we go. Next, I take what's left on my sheet of KobraCast and I heat it up with a heat gun. A heat gun is a device that can get hundreds of degrees high, so please be very careful when using it. If you've never used a heat gun before, please check the security guide located inside the box, and also buy a pair of mechanics gloves, as your hands can become just as hot as the product that you are using. Now that I have my KobraCast hot, I am forming the top of a skull cap, which I am going to use to reinforce the ears inside my wig. KobraCast stretches very well without tearing, which is very different from Warbler's finest art. So I approve of the KobraCast art's stretch radius. It's much better than having to work through a bunch of bubbles and tears. Now once I have the cap stretched and created, I take a little bit of armature wire and I'm going to use it to reinforce the inside of my ear. Here we go, like this. This is just to be sure that when I am wearing my ear, if it gets bumped into or caught on something, it doesn't rip off of my wig or out of my little skull cap that I have created. I also used a piece of foss shape on the back to reinforce further and also to have something for the fur I'm going to add later to adhere to. Alright, so here you can see that I have inserted the armature wire into the skull cap that I've glued into my wig. And there's the ear on top. Now let me show you how I did this. I took a piece of fur, cut it in the same shape, glued it to the back of my foss shape, and made sure that the piece of wire was in between the fur and the foss shape. So I have ears now attached to my wig. After I've attached the ears, it's time for painting. I use Liquitex brand acrylic paint, but you can use any generic acrylic paint to paint on top of your KobraCast. KobraCast can be primed. If you do not like the texture it has, I suggest priming it with some wood glue. Otherwise, you can paint right on top of it. It has a nice webbed texture, which is really good for a floral look. Which, when you're a plant Pokemon, that's pretty useful. Now that I have completed painting the inside of the ears, I paint the outside of them using alcohol airbrush paint. Now this is a skin-based paint that I thin down with 99% alcohol so I can paint the fur that I have secured around the KobraCast ear. Since fur likes to clump up when painted, I prefer to use an alcohol-based or water-based paint to paint it. Before painting the fur, what I usually do is I seal it in a matte Mod Podge sealant, or I seal it with some got-to-be glued hairspray so that all the fur stays together when it's being painted. This is actually very important when airbrushing fur, hair, or anything that can come loose. Make sure you have sealed it with some kind of spray or glue before you move forward. With airbrushing, make sure you take your time and add layers. Here is layer 1 for me. After about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I was able to complete painting everything. And this is what the finished look is for the ears. Finally, to make my look complete, I added a bunch of floral pieces and I glued them permanently to my wig using Gorilla Hot Glue. Thank you for watching this video. KobraCast's test sheet was sponsored by Cosplay Supplies. This video was created by Thermal Cosplay and our music is from binsound.com. We appreciate you watching, and for more information please visit www.thermalcosplay.com.